Welcome, everyone. I am John Ryan. This is the Predictive Playbook College and Pro Football Show for lucky Friday the 13th in October of 2023. I am pleased to be joined by the great pair of Rudy Reyes and Barry Long. You can check out their profiles, and their resumes are outstanding and way, way better than mine. Guys, I'm a little tired this morning. There was something on TV. I think The Bachelor was on last night, and we were watching that, and I got really enamored with that show. It's one of the worst shows I've ever seen in my life.
For the Phillies, the Bachelor, then?
Oh, you
the Phillies,
watched
the little Bachelor until they get tied to the
NLDS. Hold on. Is this The Bachelor where it's like the guy who's like an older gentleman?
No, that's the Golden Bachelor.
That's the gold. Like I saw
the Golden
Bachelor.
Yeah,
I saw the promo.
I'm told that's actually a little bit better.
I saw the promo for that, and I instantly fell in love. I was like, "Yo, man, that's there's a lot of Golden Bachelors out there. You know, Hugh Hefner was one, Larry King was one, but the Golden Bachelor, it wasn't about trying to find a young PYT, as Michael Jackson said. He's trying to find a companion for life. So I feel like the Golden Bachelor is going to have higher ratings than any other Bachelor.
I certainly hope so. And I'll tell you another thing that was golden was Castellanos last night. And this show's being recorded ahead of the Friday 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, hosted by Barry Long, that both Rudy and I attend as guests. The Pointsville app baseball show, one of the best bases show on Twitter. But here's a question I think that we'll probably discuss at that show. Is Castellanos last night became the first player ever to hit 2 home runs in back-to-back playoff games. Some other guy named Reggie Jackson hit 3 home runs in a World Series game off of Bert Hooton, Elliott Spencer, and Charlie Huff. I love that trivia question, by the way. Which one is better?
Castellanos is great, but are we ready to call this man Mr. October?
It was done in October.
I think Mr. Red October, because that's the new hashtag for the Phillies.
How about
Red
Mr.
October.
Powder Blue? How about Mr. Powder Blue October?
Yeah,
because
I think they should wear those uniforms every game now, just for superstitious reasons.
As do I.
Well, I think of the Dodgers as a hashtag Dodgers blew it, and I don't mean BLUEIT.
I saw what you did there, and I hated that because I'm a Dodger fan.
You know. As I told you, we talked about this in the Pointsville app. I don't see the Dodgers moving on in October, and guess what? They blew a front tire and swerved off into the intersection on the 405 freeway, and it was over before it started. It was a horrible time for both Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman to freeze up and have the slump that they ended up finding themselves in this series. So, as I said, and my prediction was Dodgers were not going to be in it, and they're not in it.
And as a Dodger fan, I also predicted that the Dodgers would not be in it when it comes down to it because I knew that the pitching would not last. I know
runs.
Yeah, we know about Clayton Kershaw, as I like to call him, Clay Kerr. We know about his struggles in the playoffs, but we also know that Walker Buehler is not available. We know that Julio Urias is not available. So ultimately, I picked the Braves and the Astros, and I feel terrible right now to all Phillies fans because the Phillies are just a team of destiny. I mean, 11 home runs in 4 games. It is absolutely incredible what's going on in Philadelphia. And like when I saw Bryce Harper with the whole collision play at the end of the game, I'm like, oh my God, like this is the last thing Philadelphia needs. And then Bryce Harper is celebrating with everybody else. So I just feel like this team is a team of destiny, and as well as there are certain guys that are just raking right now in the league. Corey Seager is just raking. Alvarado is just raking. But I just feel like the Phillies are a team of destiny, and when I don't have a dog in the fight, I always choose somebody who is an individual player who deserves to win a ring, and or a coach, because Andy Reid, I was rooting for him when the Ravens were out, and I'm literally rooting for Bryce Harper to win a ring and to be able to just throw those beautiful locks in the wind and then have everybody cheering for him. And I want to see a walk-off.
Walk-offs are cool. Walk-offs are nice. But to go back to your original question, John, it's got to be Reggie Jackson. I mean, the way that he did it, how he did it, with the style and the effervescent, mindset just going into that game. And for those that don't know, my dad had been Reggie Jackson's personal barber for years, and made him look good every single time he went up to the plate. But it's another story.
Your dad was Reggie Jackson's barber?
Yep.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Their venture back in the 1980s.
I believe Rudy had to take the broom out and sweep the hair up. Imagine if he would have kept that hair.
I sell on eBay. That'd be a lot of money. Put it on Amazon.
That is probably like the best stat that I've heard in 3 weeks. Like, that is awesome, bro. Like, I mean, I hear a lot of good stats, but yeah, honestly, the fact that your dad was his barber is amazing. And he was his barber in July. He was his barber in October, right?
There it is. Yeah, he was his barber in October. And one day he walked in, and my dad asked him. He says, "So, what do I call you, Reggie, Mr. Jackson, Mr. October?" And he says, "I'll go with Mr. October."
I'll go with the best nickname that I can have that strokes my ego. But seriously though, like, Rudy, are you a believer in these Phillies the way I am? Because I'm a Dodger fan, and the way that Mookie, you alluded to it, like Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman were MVP candidates, and they just did not show up. And for whatever reason, I always felt like the Dodgers would not be here when the dust settles. But now I feel like the Phillies are a team of destiny. And I don't care how great Texas or Houston is playing. I got the Phillies, and I got them at 5.
You know what? I like Houston. I like the way that they're playing. You can put the euphemism of they cheated back in the conversation. I don't even think it's relevant anymore when you look at the totality of how they've been playing the entire season. Yeah, they lost some games they should have won. But when you look at the Phillies on the other side of that coin, they've just been playing lights out. They are a team of some type of destiny, whether it's a winning destiny or a losing destiny. They are a team of destiny, to say the least. And you're right on that, Barry. I think more importantly, when you look at Bryce Harper, when you look at his ability to really put this team on his back, he's done it. And so many players have done it before him. We look at football, we can look at basketball, and LeBron James and how he put the Lakers on his back more often than not because of the lack of personnel, or maybe they just need a spark. There's always someone on any given sports roster that allows for the team in complete totality to do something more. I think Bryce Harper is that guy with the mentality and the way that he's playing. And when I look at any matchup against the Phillies, it's going to be tough sledding for whoever faces off. But the biggest story, I think, is the Texas Rangers. Nobody picked them to be here. No one. But they bet on themselves, and they continue betting on themselves. And I like the way that they're playing. It's kind of a Cinderella story when you really think about it. They have not been there in a very long time. So for them to be even where they're at right now, certainly when you have two Texas teams involved in
that's a lot of barbecue. That's a lot of barbecue.
There's a lot of barbecue, a lot of brisket. And if I was a betting man, give me the smallest piece of brisket, because I know there'll be dogs in the fight on both sides of the fence, crawling to get that one, trying to get the bone. So I think I think the Rangers, hats off to them. I know the general manager that works for them, and he's beyond ecstatic. And of course, you have the crosstown rivals in the Houston Astros, who've also been playing lights out. I mean, this is when you get the best of the best of the best for everybody, every player, every swing at the bat, every pitch from the plate, every defensive knockout play to stop a threatening run from scoring. I mean, you couldn't get any better than what we have going on right now in Major League Baseball.
Absolutely.
I agree. And I say this as quietly as possible. I want the betting gods to know, but I think I mentioned it on the Pointsville show coming up here at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, that if you like the Phillies to win the World Series, don't bet them. Take Zach Wheeler to be the MVP of the World Series. And I have him at 90-1, and he's down to 35-1 now.
Hey, well, Wheeler,
very quietly.
Wheeler is a dealer, and it has been fantastic to watch what the Phillies have been doing just from a pitching standpoint. And the thing about it is they have the best bullpen that's left right now, and probably in all of the teams that were even in the postseason. But the bullpen is rested.
Yep. Well, I think you saw last night too the character of the team. The announcers kept saying that the relievers were coming in out of position, that they were, putting Kimbrel, the closer, in at the 7th inning, and Alvarado was pitching in the 6th, and he's normally in the 8th as a setup man. This whole team, no matter what the batting order was, whatever Thompson said, Alec Boehm, you're going to bat 8th for a while. There was no, ego. There was no, pity party like, well, I'm not going to try if I'm batting 8th. Or, why is he making me pitch in the 6th when I'm the setup man? You saw it last night, and look who was closing the game, Matt Strong. What were the odds that he was going to be the guy to get the save to send him into the NLCS? I mean, that would have been like 1,000,000 to 1. But that they trust Thompson immensely, and you can see he's a player's coach, but there's discipline. And then you have Harper, who really, you think about it, if Harper ever hit 3 home runs in a World Series game, that trot around the bases would be very similar to the confidence that Reggie Jackson exuded. I can definitely see that stride that Reggie had was the best. It just was like, you're done. I own you, and this game is over. And that's kind of how Harper does it too.
For sure.
Let's move on to the NFL here, because I know Rudy is licking his chops here at this game that's taking place over in London. Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Ravens and Titans. Ravens are 3-2 on this season. Titans are 2-3. This is kind of a pivotal game, especially for the Titans. If they go down 2-4, the probability of making the playoffs becomes extremely low compared to where they are right now. Baltimore is a 4-point favorite, neutral field, obviously, and the total is a rather low 42 points. Who do you think takes this game, Rudy?
I like both of these teams, and of course, I'm an AFC North guy, and of course, if you don't know what team I follow, is a team that beat the Ravens at home, and always a very close game between the Steelers and the Ravens. But there was just a lot of missed opportunities, and then here comes the hyper train the day after saying, is Lamar Jackson worth all of that money? And my answer is yes, he is. It's not his fault receivers dropped the ball. Yes, the placement in the end zone, a little bit too much air underneath that for Joey Porter Jr. to come underneath and grab that ball for an interception, and that would be his first interception in his young NFL career. I do like the Ravens in this game, and you can't count out the offensive production of Derrick Henry. Even though the Titans are on a very slow streak, offensive production for them has not been very good. And Ryan Tannehill is not the answer at quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. And here I thought he'd be on the hot seat and you'd see Kirk Cousins maybe take his place, but that wouldn't work. That's a parallel move. I'm not a fan of Kirk Cousins, as most people know, in regards to his play style. I'm sure he's a great guy, but at the end of the day, the offensive production is out there, and he does not deserve to be the quarterback under center for the Minnesota Vikings. But more on this game against the Titans, going on in a very large stadium with fans of all ages, of all types. And I can't help but think of the NFL Europe component that happened back in the 90s for maybe 1 year for one and 2 years for another. There was so much competition between those teams, but it just never caught on here in the U.S. Now the NFL is putting the London games, because London is calling, of course, today being Friday the 13th. Maybe something can be said for the weekend. And who's going to take the bite out of, which werewolf's going to take the bite once you land in London? And that's going to be the Tennessee Titans. I think they find a way against this otherwise once vaunted Ravens defense, and Derrick Henry's just going to have a field day with the Ravens. Now, I know that Barry Long is he's from that area, so he kind of roots for the Ravens in this regard.
Not kind of
dog in the fight, but I do know that the Ravens will end up struggling offensively and defensively. I just don't think they have enough. Tennessee typically travels well. Baltimore has proven not to travel very well. But when it's all said and done, I just think that the Titans will end up winning this one. It's not going to be a huge margin of victory by any means. I think you're looking at maybe a 7-point swing, maybe even a 3. but I'm picking the Titans to win this one.
And me being the diehard Raven that I am, I also know that we do not travel well. And I know that Tennessee has our number for some reason. And, when the divisions got realigned many years ago, before the Tennessee Titans and the Ravens were in the same division, and even when we played them in the playoffs, they walked on the logo, and the Ravens tried to overcompensate and tried to be like, oh, but ultimately, it just feels like some teams have some other teams' numbers, and the Titans do have the Ravens' numbers. And I don't like us traveling to Tennessee, much less going across the pond and playing in London. And the Jaguars, we all know that they travel well to London. They have veterans on the team that know exactly what restaurant to go to, what nightclubs to go to, what casinos to not go to, what bars to not go to. But when you look at a team like the Ravens, there's not any veterans on the team, maybe one or two that have actually been to London. And it is just it's going to be an eye-opening situation for them. And then when you combine the fact that Baltimore doesn't travel that well on the road, and Lamar Jackson doesn't play well on the road, especially when he's on the West Coast or has a 5-hour plus trip to go. So I do like the Tennessee Titans in this game, and my parents are Tennessee Titans fans. So I know they're going to love this, that I'm saying this, but I like them by 1 point. I feel like it's going to be like an ugly scoring game, John Ryan. I think it's going to be like 17-15, and then the Titans are going to hit that field goal and make it 18-17.
6
I'm with
field
Rudy.
goals.
Hey, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
An all field goal game. Now, look, this overall series is tied at 13 apiece. So it's not as if either one of these guys have an edge, but the Titans, again, as you stated, and I alluded to earlier, that the Titans are better on the road. Ravens beat the Titans 20-13 in the 2021 wild card game, if those that are old enough to remember. But then the Steelers, again, had beat the Ravens at home 17-10. And the Titans lost to the Colts 23-16. So this is kind of a revenge game. So I can see that being a 1-point differential. And I'm picking the Titans. I'm staying with that.
The Titans with a win could actually be tied for first place at the end of Monday Night Football action for Week 6. So that would be pretty wild. Both divisions, I was looking here, AFC North, Steelers, Baltimore Ravens 3-2, Browns, Bengals 2-3. So these are really pivotal games, even though it's still early in the season, and they do start to mean an awful lot. Let's take a look into another game here in the NFC. We have 2 undefeated teams remaining in the Philadelphia Eagles, who arguably have not played their best game but are still 5-0, and that ground attack is unstoppable right now. Cleveland is, the New York Jets are the opponent for them. 1 o'clock game up in New York City. The Jets, I'm pulling for Zach Wilson because he's the biggest underdog there could ever be to cheer for. And I don't like it when the media bashes somebody and says, he sucks, he's whatever. He was drafted number 2 in the 2021 draft, so he must have done something pretty darn well to get drafted number 2. So I'm kind of cheering for him. 2 wins in a row now. He actually had a higher quarterback rating than Patrick Mahomes in that 3-point loss to the Chiefs. And, do the Jets have enough momentum right now to catch the Eagles sleeping? That's the line is kind of funny here. It's 6 points. I think the Eagles should be favored by like 15, the way that ground attack is. But the Jets have one of the best run-stop defenses in all of the NFL. And I think this matchup is going to be really intriguing. Let's start with Barry and see if he has any insights here on who is going to win this showdown.
All right, so I love the Eagles team, and I love the fact that they're undefeated, and the fact that people keep every game is a trap game. Oh, this is a trap game for Philadelphia. Oh, this is a trap game for Philadelphia, and people are saying the same thing about this Jets game. But it just feels like when the dust settles, Jalen Hurts might not make the best plays throughout the course of the game, but at the end of the game, they just know how to win. And the defense was lights out last year, especially that front. That front was just dominant. And to the point where I picked them as my fantasy football defense, and I just been losing. They've been giving me 2 points a week. But I do feel like the Jets have the better defense. But it's just like, and I'm with you, John Ryan, on Zach Wilson. Like I root for underdogs all day. And I love the fact that Aaron Rodgers is now ingratiating himself with the teammates, and he's kind of mentoring Zach Wilson, not the way that he mentored Jordan Love or the way that Brett Favre mentored him. He's actually like trying. And it's a beautiful thing to see that. And I think that when you saw Zach Wilson without Aaron Rodgers on the sidelines or up in the booth, it was night and day. So I love the fact that Aaron Rodgers is back. I love what the Jets are doing. And I don't feel like this is a trap game for them. I feel like the Eagles are still going to win this game, but I feel like it's going to be a lot closer than most people think.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty elusive when you look at what he had done. And defensively for the Jets, picked off Patrick Mahomes twice in that matchup. So I think the D has something to prove, not only wanting to become the number one, but I think they're somewhere in like 17th or 18th overall in the NFL. It's just kind of silly to suggest otherwise, only because of how they play and allowing guys like Patrick Mahomes to still make points on the other end of the field. When you look at the Jets, and you had stated Aaron Rodgers. Now, look, Aaron Rodgers, for all good that he does as a football player, he doesn't know the difference between inoculation and vaccination. So I question him. I just do. His logic, his theory, everything about who Aaron Rodgers is, I question until he admits that he didn't know the difference between the two. But all kidding aside, Zach Thomas has been doing relatively well with Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if it's the aura that Aaron gives off. Maybe it's the coaching up from a veteran, from a potential Hall of Famer, at least in the first ballot sense. Aaron Rodgers is a guy who has done nothing but great things since being a New York Jet. And I think Zach can certainly learn from that. I see him basically growing up in front of my eyes. When you looked at what he did last game with a passer rating probably better than anybody and beat out Patrick Mahomes in passer rating, along with probably every other quarterback in the NFL throwing those dimes into the end zone. But the Eagles and the tush push, and I think I know why the Philadelphia Eagles has been called the trap game artists, is because when they went in, and me and Willie Colon had this conversation, me and Jim Everett had this conversation, me and Mike Silver had this conversation, Brian Baldinger had this conversation. We just had discovered that the Philadelphia Eagles were just that good. But it was a trap game, and they lost against a formidable foe in the Kansas City Chiefs. That's why they're still the trap game artists, formerly known as the Eagles, trying to find a way to get past every single game. It's a trap game until they get back to the Super Bowl, and I think that's going to be the moniker moving forward. Eagles playing too well, too good, too often. Jalen Hurts so good when it comes to just that tush push. And clearly that's not a penalty in the NFL. And it's not illegal formation by any means, and it's something that's kind of a staple to them. I just think that they're playing at an all-time high right now.
Rudy, real quick, can we give that a new nickname? I don't like the tush push.
Well, okay, then
like
how about the Eagle shove?
Maybe the hump bump.
The hump bump. That would only count on Wednesday. The Sunday, like in SUNDAE, I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing stuff off the cuff, but I think the Eagles are just playing way too well, and every game's gonna be a trap game until they get back to the Super Bowl, which they have a very tough schedule, and for a lot of teams, they have a tough schedule. 49ers, they have to face off against them. That could be an NFC championship game preview, maybe. I know Brock Purdy's playing out of his mind right now. They're firing on all cylinders. They are the class of the NFC. So the Eagles are they have someone to look up to, or at least not from a parallel corner of your eye kind of visual. But I'm picking the Eagles here.
Yeah, I'm leaning the Eagles here. I think the Jets could keep it close for a while, but then when the Eagles switch, they literally turn that running game switch on, and it is pretty amazing to see. I think the other thing the Eagles have going for them is the Phillies, and they feed off of each other. It's similar fan bases, and even though this is a road game, you can bet that it's going to sound more like a home game, even though it's up there at MetLife Stadium where the Jets and the Giants play. So I think the Eagles are you just cannot bet against them. It just would not make any sense at all to me. But there is a game on the radar here with another undefeated team, arguably the best team in the NFL right now, head and shoulders better than everybody else. If you think Dallas is at least a 500 team, which I do, I think they're a playoff-bound team, but they got just hammered 42-10 by those 49ers. They're taking on Cleveland on the road, who's coming off the bye. And speaking of trap games, this might be one that gets the first loss of the season for the 49ers. I know it sounds crazy to think that, but I do have the analytics to back it up. But I'm more interested to know what Rudy thinks of this game, and then we'll go over to Barry for the thoughts that he has.
Well, the last time these two teams faced off, it was 49-38 in the favor of Cleveland, and that was without said quarterback in Watson. Gosh, and the Cowboys just looked so horrible against the 49ers. I was almost wondering if that was the same team that had traveled there from Dallas. I had went to Cowboys training camp, and a lot of the things that I had seen, in addition to looking at Dak Prescott and his capabilities and his mindset, it was all a plus. Now, I'm not a huge Dak Prescott fan by any means, but Dak had been playing relatively well up to that point, throwing unnecessary, and untimely interceptions against them. And then you look at the other side of the fence where the Cowboys themselves just look like they're a complete disarray. You have double teams on Micah Parsons. You have now Van Der Esch is out. Leighton Van Der Esch will now be out for about 3 to 6 weeks with a neck strain. And that's something that, the Cowboys were concerned with when they drafted him in 2018. And of course I was there. I had a chance to interview him and talk to him, but it just doesn't look like the same Dallas Cowboys offense that I was accustomed to seeing, now 3-2, who just so happens in a parallel move, the same record as the Steelers, who are on a bye week this week. But I just think that the Cleveland Browns, even with Watson possibly under center, and right now he didn't practice yesterday, he may be out. So then you'll have the backup there playing in lieu of. I just think there's going to be way too much Dallas Cowboyism involved in this game. I'm picking the Cowboys to win without Deshaun Watson under center. Now, Deshaun Watson is not necessarily the answer under center for the Cleveland Browns unless he cleans up his act, his game, his mentality on the field. I really don't see that as being the case. So I'm going to have to take the Cowboys in this one explicitly.
Barry, what do you think here in this matchup?
No, so I thought it was the Browns and Niners. So the Cowboys, I'm taking the Cowboys over the Chargers too, like Rudy said, because I just love the Cowboys. And when you look at the Niners are just one of the best teams that we've ever seen assembled. I mean, when you look at the weapons that they have, and the way that Brock Purdy he has the ability to keep everyone happy. I mean, Deebo Samuel, we had like a whole new position created for this man, and then all of a sudden it comes in Christian McCaffrey, and you've got Ayuk, you've got George Kittle, who is arguably one of the best tight ends in the league, and it's just an ability for Kyle Shanahan to play call and to scheme things properly. But Brock Purdy is just so damn. He's not so damn good. He's pretty damn good. Okay, just all pun intended. But I feel like I put him in the MVP conversation already. But it's just the ability to keep all those weapons and all those guys happy, and because you don't have anybody upset. And when we look at the Dolphins offense is historically great. Like they have more yards through the first 5 weeks than any other team in the history of the NFL, even more than the greatest show on turf. And I think that those two teams are on a collision course right now. If you put a gun to my head, I would say 49ers Dolphins. And it is just because of the play calling and the schematics and Kyle Shanahan's brain and then Mike McDaniel's ability to take it to the next level. So, but yeah, I like the 49ers in every game that they play, unless they play like the Dolphins. I don't think
too early for me.
there's no trap game for this team though. Like honestly, like this team is if Brock Purdy goes through some adversity, then I think that they struggle. But I just don't feel like the 49ers are really that team.
Well, I'm going to have to recant here because it's too early for me in the morning.
That we've been.
So this whole preview for the 49ers is way too much Kyle Shanahan. There's too much offense. The Browns don't have that. There's some questions on the other side of the ball from an injury standpoint. The 49ers have just been playing lights out, and I don't even believe remotely that you're going to find the Browns finding a way out of a wet paper bag to beat the 49ers. I just don't think there's enough talent. I don't think there's enough play calling between Kevin Stefanski and the quarterback to be determined under center this Sunday facing off against them. But it is an uphill battle, and I just don't see anything from the Browns that would lead me to believe that they have the propensity to beat the 49ers in any way, shape, or form. And again, if I was a betting man, I'd put the farm on the 49ers to come out with a win.
Real quick, John Ryan and Rudy, I just want to ask you guys this question. All right, so it has been universally recognized that the 49ers are the best team in maybe not just the NFC, maybe the NFL. It's also been universally recognized that the Eagles are the second best team in the NFC. Are we ready to put the Lions right there as the third best team in the NFC over the Cowboys?
Go ahead, John. I'll let you take that.
I'm not there yet with Detroit. They are definitely up and coming team. I think they're still a year away. When you take a look at what the Eagles can do on the ground at any given time to control the clock, keep the other offense off the field, that's a monumental advantage no matter who they play, including the 49ers. And then as you guys have mentioned already, the 49ers are loaded top to bottom with so many weapons. I do think George Kittle's the best tight end in the game and possibly better than Kelsey was in his prime. And I know that's going out on the limb, but Kelsey's now distracted with some country singer. I forget her name. But seriously, the 49ers, I think, are the best team. Then the Eagles right behind them. And then I think there is a gap. And I think maybe Detroit might be the third team, but I'm not ready for them to beat either one of those teams in a playoff setting, especially having to go on the road to play them in Philly or San Francisco.
You know, I'm going to disagree with you, John. They have shown the propensity between Jared Goff not being talked about as being one of the better quarterbacks in the NFC. I'm not on the Lions bandwagon here. I'm just going off what I see.
am.
They are so of course you are, Barry. They are so different night and day between what I seen last year and what I see this year. And what I see this year is more so well-oiled machine than the 2022 version of the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff, they have Amon St. Brown. Look, they have so many different options. They have a great tight end in Laporta. That they have. They're playing so well right now. It is hard for me not to like the Detroit Lions, and I'm going to pick them to be the NFC North champs, and no one's even coming close to their ability to do so. No one, not even the Packers. And of course, they don't have Aaron Rodgers, but if they did, it'd be a whole nother story. But that belongs to the New York Jets, and hopefully find a way to win this Sunday. But the Detroit Lions are certainly not the most talked about team. Why? Out of sight, out of mind. They're typically up in the middle of really nowhere in Detroit. Not just that Detroit is nowhere, but where they're located. And the media frenzy is not all about them. They're all about the Rams and the glitz and glamour. They're all about the Kansas City Chiefs. And, you're having all these other teams talked about, but the Detroit Lions aren't one of those teams. Matter of fact, you can put the Steelers right there in the mix of teams that aren't really discussed, that aren't really talked about. And the Lions have a better record than Pittsburgh. So why are we not hearing anything about the Detroit Lions and what they bring to the field every time they touch it? Jared Goff was released by the Rams. I think it was a blessing in disguise for Jared now in his second year with the Detroit Lions. I'm ready to put them in that conversation. Maybe not a deep playoff run conversation, but at least making it into the playoffs, which they fell short of last year.
Yeah, I feel like they can buy the kneecap offer too if they get to the playoffs. But you're so right, Rudy, because like ultimately this team embodies what the city of Detroit is all about: a blue collar town that's down and out. That the Ford plant left and everybody's leaving, and there's no real estate there. And it's just a town that is kind of like the same story that Jared Goff has. Jared Goff is in LA, glitz and glamour, and then he gets kicked out the back door. And he goes there and he embodies what the city means. And I feel you, because last season when they beat the Packers in the end of the last game, they weren't making it to the playoffs, but that was their playoff in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
The reality of it is that they were building blocks, and there's levels to this. And so, they finally got over the hump of beating the Packers in a meaningful game, and now I feel like they're going to win the division, and they're not going to make a deep playoff run this year. I agree with you on that as well, Rudy. But I just feel like this team is going to be a class of the NFC North, and if people are not noticing, they will notice when we get to the end of the season.
I'm changing my mind a little bit. I guess the gap isn't as wide as I think.
Well,
it's recency bias. Like you guys said, you think of Detroit in years past and struggles and everything else, but there's no question they're the best team in the North Division. There's no doubting that in any scenario whatsoever. Minnesota is a team that won a lot of games last year, won score games. The tide is turning. That's what happens in the NFL. You have lucky wins, fortuitous wins in one season, and then it becomes unfortuitous losses, which is what the Vikings are good at doing this year.
Sure,
Sadly,
and they are. And you're right, John. I think moreover, when you look at the trade swirling around getting Kirk Cousins out of Minnesota, I think that's the right move. I think they would be better suited if they moved on from a guy who just can't seem to get the ball down the field, at least to move the chains and not rely on the heavy ball, the long ball rather, down the field to make completions and to get them into some type of, a playoff conversation. Then you have Jefferson, who's out as well. I think this team is falling apart with a guy by the name of Kirk Cousins.
You ready to move on from Kirk Cousins after watching that?
Absolutely.
I am too.
You are too, John Ryan? Oh my God.
All right,
so I know Kirk Cousins may not be watching. You know what? Kirk Cousins is watching this. Kirk Cousins, I believe in you. And I saw the documentary on Netflix.
I love that. That was great.
Know, but and shout out to Peyton Manning for grabbing 3 quarterbacks that were on 3 different levels. He got Pat Mahomes, who is like he is the number 1 quarterback of this generation right now after Tom Brady has retired. And then you get a guy in Kirk Cousins who is literally, if you think of middle of the pack, like if I ask you right now, who is the most quarterback, you're gonna say Kirk Cousins. Then he got Marcus Mariota from the bottom, who is a guy who's been from town to town, city to city, and he's a journeyman, and now he's been reduced to a backup journeyman. But when you see his feeling on going from city to city, he's like, oh, I get to go to another team. That means I get to learn a new city. Like, I love that energy and I love that mentality. But you don't see the way that these guys handle situations like that. And then you don't see a guy like Kirk Cousins handle mediocrity the way that he's been handling it. And honestly, I just feel like, yes, last year the Vikings won so many games that were so close. I mean, they had so many come from behind victories. It was almost like a Tim Tebow for the Broncos year again. But and then now it's a double-edged sword. Now they're losing those games. But I still feel like Kirk Cousins, and maybe this is the DMV area of me that just roots for every guy that's played for the Redskins or the Commanders or the Washington football team or the Ravens. But I just feel like Kirk Cousins, I'm not ready to throw him out with the hot dog water. Like, I think that we need to just take our time. I'm not ready to throw him out with the bath water either. Like you throw the baby out with the bath water, and you throw everything out with the hot dog water. I'm not ready to go either way.
Hot dog water. He's a hot dog that no one wants to pick up.
Is he the burnt hot dog?
He's the one that you take out of the pot and put it over the flame.
I'll give you this, Rudy. Kirk Cousins needs a little bit of flavor. So maybe he needs some chili, some onions, a little bit of ketchup and mustard or relish, and then Kirk Cousins. But I'm not ready to give up on Kirk Cousins just yet. I feel like there's still a little bit of chicken left on that bone before we throw that bone away.
Chicken, brisket, whatever you want to call it. It's not going to be.
Can y'all tell I'm hungry?
Look, his brother's cousin's uncle's dad's brother. There's no way that Kirk Cousins is going to be that guy in Minnesota moving forward next year because he is not the head coach's guy. He's just not.
Yeah,
not
that's the problem.
Kirk Cousins is a poor man Marcus Mariota version, and that's I'm staying with it. I'm staying with it.
It's good stuff, gentlemen. We have the Pointsville Baseball Show coming up that we are all on, and Barry's actually the host of that show, starting in 7 minutes.
Yes.
So if you want to, take a minute, each one of you, tell us what's going on with your shows, what you have coming up, anything you want to share. The platform's you. We'll start with Rudy, then we'll go to Barry, and then I'll finish with something interesting about the Patriots.
Let's hope so, because there's nothing really interesting about them, at least at this point, other than the losing streak they're on. No, you guys can find me at Rudy Reyes on Twitter. You can go to therudogshow.com. 9, almost 10 years in broadcast plus. I've talked to some of the best, and of course, upcoming, I have Eric Metcalf coming on the Rude Dog Show as well. So make sure you stay tuned for that one. It's going to be fun, interesting. You can find me on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, of course, today being Friday, on everything related to news on iHeart Radio, Seattle 1090. You guys can find me on KVTA, which is Oxnard, Ventura, talking news there as well. So if you like that kind of thing and you're into it, make sure you download the iHeart app and check me out. I'll be there till 7 p.m. Pacific time today.
Awesome stuff, Rudy. What do you got going on, Barry?
All right, so real quick, I mean, I do the 5150 Sports Show on Twitter Spaces. Going to move to a different app. But I'll announce that later on. But I just want to say that Rudy Reyes is somebody who I met, a couple of years ago, and somebody who has been a mentor to me, somebody who's been very helpful to just networking and just teaching me the ins and outs and the intricacies and the nuances of the business, and somebody who I really look up to, and I'm just so thankful to be here with him. And then John Ryan, you're somebody who I hold a lot of reverence for as well. I love your baseball knowledge. I love the way that you conduct yourself. I love your decorum when you're in spaces, and I love the way you host shows. So I'm just thankful to be here with you guys. If y'all want to follow me, I'm on Twitter at Barry Long, IIBARRY, not BERRY. I'm not a raspberry. I'm not a strawberry. I am a half blackberry, but I'm not a raspberry. I'm not a strawberry. So BARRY. LONGII. I'm on same thing on Facebook and IG, but just so thankful to be talking sports with y'all, man. And let's go.
Well, with time of the essence, I feel the same way about you guys. I have you guys as way superior to my knowledge and expertise in this stuff, and I learn an awful lot from you guys every time I'm on the show. But what I'm trying to learn is, do the Patriots have an offense? I don't think so, but you might want to know that teams that are coming off of a shutout loss are 98, 137 with one tie. It's 42% straight up. Against the spread, 126, 103, and 7, 55%. So this is a skinny line against the Raiders. So it's not really like a game where I see the Patriots covering the spread but losing the game. I see more of the over. And the over is supported by the fact that teams that have scored 3 points, we're talking about the Patriots.
They've been outscored 72-3 in the last 2 games.
Mind right now. 3 points the Patriots have scored in 2 games. I feel like I'm talking about the old Jets. But anyway, these teams in the following game are 2-11 straight up, 7-6 against the spread. But the over, interesting enough, is 10-3. So maybe the Raiders get out to a 28-3 lead, and then there's some garbage points in the fourth quarter. and we get over that 42-point total. So that is my lean. That's probably going to be one of my bets for the premium clients, to take the over 42, because it simply looks way too high to for these two teams, let alone the Patriots being involved with their arsenal of offensive weapons. Wow, I put down one of my favorite teams. That's amazing. Anyway, we're going to move on here to the Pointsville Baseball Show here at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Spaces. And until the next time you see us together, always remember to bet with your head, never over it, and may all the wins be yours.